Kyle said, I know you've been speaking to Muslim communities across the country as you've trying to promote the book here in the States. How do you bridge the gap between your faith in Christ, Jeremy, with their faith in Islam? Um, it hasn't been quite as complex as I thought it might be. Uh, I don't have a long history with Muslims in America. It's not nearly as long as my history and experience with Muslims in the Middle East. And so I came into this still, I think, feeling like a fish out of water in some ways, whereas I feel much more at home in the Middle East and Central Asian kind of countries having some of these conversations. In some ways, I feel a boldness over there because I'm speaking my own language and they're interpreting it through a second language lens, or I'm speaking their language and I'm not necessarily aware of all that I'm saying. There's a boldness that comes from that sort of safeguard, whereas here I'm dealing with native English speakers in a culture where we share and have grown up. And so I've come into some of these conversations a little uncertain of what the reception would be, but the reception's been great. I mean, that's all I know to say. The reception's been great. There's the communities I've been among so far have, one, been appreciative of the effort just to go into a place like Iraq, because the truth is they're affected by headlines just like we are. This isn't a Christian-Muslim thing, how we interpret headlines, how media shapes us. It's a human thing, you know, and so they're consuming the same headlines that you're consuming. Iraq is as foreign a place to them as it is to you, and for them, being American Muslims, Iraq is really scary at times, and so for them to have to overcome some of their own fears of Iraqi Muslims or of the Shia population if they're Sunni, or of the Sunni population if they're Shia, they deal with some of that stuff just like we might on the Christian side of this conversation. So that's one part of it. The other part is I'm learning more and more, and we've talked about this some along the way, but when I first started making friends with Muslims a long time ago, I had this baseline assumption that I needed to be afraid and that I needed to hide certain things. It was just part of the air I was breathing, and the people around me was that they're out to get you, therefore you got to play it safe. And one of the ways you play it safe is to hide a bunch of stuff and maybe even make up alternative narratives that are more plausible in their minds. Well, what I found for me was that created a whole culture of heightened fear and anxiety in my life, that I knew I was hiding a few things and I was afraid to be found out. And a couple of years ago, 5-7 years ago, we just decided no more hiding. One of the songs that we sang early this morning was about how nothing here is hidden. You are our one desire. And that, I mean, the last couple of years would probably be the only time where I could really say that, because there was a period of life where there were some hidden things, and I was unwilling to be honest about that. So moving out into the light and not having anything to hide has made the whole process a lot easier. It makes me a different person. It makes me less suspicious because I am less to be suspected, and that just makes the whole friendship flourish, because I'm not constantly on my heels, afraid to be found out, and then with my fists up in a defensive position waiting to be attacked. So, kind of a long answer to say it's just the reception's been good. We've had honest, candid conversations about the commonalities we share as monotheistic Abrahamic religions who both claim to follow Jesus, but to also be able to dive into some of the distinctions of what we might mean and how that might affect our practice of that.